properly. Kia ora. The Honourable Joe Goodhew.
Thank you, Mr Chair. Well, I rise to speak today on the annual review of the Ministry of Education. I do want to concentrate particularly on the Ministry of Education and the appearance before the committee of the Ministry to answer our questions. I want to begin by congratulating Heke Parata on a stellar time as Minister of Education, completely driven to change achievement. And we asked in the committee a number of questions about achievement. I'll go into that a little further in a moment or two. And to welcome the Honourable Nikki Kay to the role, a tough role, but one that really matters. And as I go around the schools in my electorate, and they are talking about the same things that our committee asked in this annual review, they tell me that they understand that what we want is the best education for the students that are going to school. We want the most young people engaged in education, and that in fact again was some of the questions we put to the committee. Now, I was a little disturbed to hear other committee members talking about the total budget and the apparently shrinking budget, when we on this side of the House know it is simply not shrinking, but also alluding to perhaps a separation of where the money is spent. It is just incredible to think that members cannot take the whole of education as one and understand that there needs to be a ministry. There needs to be school buildings that the children are taught in, that they experience education in. So to suggest that we should look at those parts of education aside just seemed incredible to me. Buildings didn't matter and the ministry staff didn't either. So policy advice, well, that's an interesting one. Now, in terms of some of the areas that I particularly want to touch on are the COLs. So this is the communities of learning, kahui ako. Now, what we have seen and was reported to the committee was that now 67% of schools, roughly 67% of schools, are engaged in COLs. And I know in my own electorate there are a number of COLs, and in fact I'm starting to hear the stories about that really working. The engagement by the leading principals. Now, what we have across the country is 52 leaders, and we asked why it had to be principals, and we were told that largely they were the best people to be the leaders. In fact, there are 2 COLs that have other than principals as leaders. There's about 1,500 schools, we were told, now involved in COLs. And of course, a significant investment on the part of the government, the taxpayers of New Zealand really, in the COLs and in what that can mean. The stories I'm hearing, and we were told, were around the leadership that is addressing the specific issues within those schools. I did also want to mention, while I'm on my feet, something that again seems to have been lost in translation when other members have stood to raise these issues. There was an extra $15.3 million spent in this last year, helping an extra 1,250 students get extra teacher aids. Now that's the facts, not the rhetoric from the comms. That's the facts. The other thing is the ops grant's gone up by 16%, and this last year we listened to the principals who said, I've got tough kids in this school, really needy kids in this school, yet you're just giving a blanket increase to the schools where they don't have anywhere near as many of those tough kids. So that's why the ops grant went to the schools where the students had been identified as the most needy. 1/3 of the schools went up. 1/3 of the schools stayed the same. Because they had less of those students, 1/3 went down, and 15 schools actually missed out altogether. Now that's the facts about the ops grant this year. So to hear it represented as anything other than that from the other side of the House is, oh well, maybe that's the comms and research over the other side of the House. However, what we know is that principals say to us, please recognise there are students in our school that need more help than other students. Please focus extra funding on them. And that's the way it was done during this last year. So that is why. At the same time, we hear complaints, and we did talk very briefly about early childhood education in the committee. We talked about about the revisiting of the curriculum, and that has now, of course, come to pass. The draft was out for consultation at the time. So that's what happened in the annual review.
The question is that the reports of committees relevant to the education and science sector be noted. Those who are of that opinion will say aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. One quiet voice to nil. The question is that the reports of the committees relevant to the environment sector be noted.
Mr. Chairman.
The Honourable David Parker.